Welcome to my home and Lofty Questions. My name is Terry Finnegan Lynch, and I'm a certified health and life coach. And I'm so excited about our episode today. But before we start the show, I want to take a minute just to say thank you to you for welcoming me into your home and your community. Our broadcast family is growing, and so many new viewers are out there for us. And thank you for being here. And if you're coming back as a viewer, wow, thank you so very much. We really appreciate that. Like everyone, this COVID crisis was a brand new experience. There was no blueprint, there was no user manual. We were all in it at a very naive place. And it kind of hit us sideways, me included. But as a health and life coach, and trained in looking at habits and how to shift thought, emotion, and behavior, I had an opportunity to look at my own behavior and apply these strategies of why I do what I do as a person. So my training as a coach helps us step back and look at the big picture, and then zero in on what I'm doing that may or may not serve me. So when I was in my first 4 to 6 weeks of isolation as a sheltered senior, that was something I'd never experienced before, and it was bringing out a part of me that was hurting my overall wellness. I wasn't eating well, and I wasn't talking to people, and I was getting sad and depressed, and the isolation was really hurting me. So as a coach, I was able to engage in the questions that are important to activate a shift in thought, because everything begins with a thought. So my own personal struggle became the platform of evidence that we can come out of COVID stronger because of COVID, because it's revealing to us something we've never seen before. It's a window that we have never opened. And in that perspective, we can see stuff that we might have been ignoring before the pandemic. The beauty of coaching is, number one, you don't do it alone. I had support from my coach in order to see these things. But they're gentle, and they're curious, and they're welcoming questions about who am I and what do I need? And then we figure out how to get that. So the COVID crisis was actually an incredible opportunity for me to go into a deeper place of reflection and discover something that I might have been ignoring, and I was ignoring in the pre-pandemic time when we're all busy and functioning at a high level and multitasking, and our kids are going everywhere, and it was easy to ignore some of these core things that trouble us. So COVID was actually a gift for me, and why I feel that bringing these strategies to you will be a gift to you as well. So now we're going to start the show. In the first episode, we asked the question, who am I in COVID-19, and who do I want to be in the new norm? Episode 2, we asked, what am I learning about myself that I wouldn't have known without this experience? In our third episode, we asked, what is my unmet need? And today, our lofty question is, what stands in the way of me getting what I need? Today, we're going to take that thread of questions and ask, what stands in the way of me actually getting what I need? Now, answering that is tied to my unmet need. So let me explain. If I don't know what an unmet need is, then I am going to have this state of confusion. It's subconscious. You don't really realize that that's going on. But what we do, because our instinct is to solve problems, create an equilibrium within our lives, we go and we solve it but we're coming from kind of a broken space, from a not a well state of mind. So what happens is the solution to an unmet need that isn't identified is actually a disguise. And it turns into a habit. A habit can form in like 4 weeks. So some of our behavior that has been going on for, let's say, years is rooted in an unmet need that is been going on for as much as that time is. There's all kinds of ways that we mask an unmet need with control through a behavior that becomes a pattern, that becomes a habit. So when we ask the question, what stands in the way of me getting what I need, it's twofold. Number one, do I know what that unmet need is? And number two, how do I disarm the behavior that I've created in response all along? And how we're going to answer that is in Paradigm Corner. So join me. Welcome to Paradigm Corner. You know what I love about coaching is the opportunity to create new ideas through paradigms. And they're so soft and gentle, but very thought-provoking and offer great shifts in our behavior. So today's paradigm is this. Every thought, emotion, and behavior has a positive intention. Always. So when we were talking over there and in the lofty question about our habits, one of the reasons that they're so easy to repeat, to be in that loop, is because there is a positive intention. So when I'm in that helpless place in that COVID experience and I choose to worry, the positive intention is that my family knows I care, right? And that's really important. And that overrides my unmet need, which I'm not even thinking about. What I'm thinking about is this loop that is giving me a sense of control. The positive intention is that in this helpless state of COVID, I am at least really caring for my family. Okay, well that is limiting. We don't go very far in that place. So for me, what I want to explain, and I invite you to do the same, is to find out what is that unmet need that you're learning about during this COVID crisis, and ask what is standing in the way of it, which was probably a habit. So my experience, I'm going to relate to you in those first 4 to 6 weeks of COVID. I had started a new practice in coaching, working with families. And I had been hired as a contractor, and I was working with schools and families, and everything was great. And then COVID hit, and we all went indoors, and everything stopped. I had no referral partners, and it was scary. And so what I did, without really looking at what my unmet need was, is I came over here to my desk and I sat down at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I would not push away from my desk until 8 o'clock at night. I would eat here. I would ignore my smartwatch that would say get up and move around or breathe. I became a workaholic. And my positive intention when I actually got to this part in my journey through COVID and asking what's going on here, what's standing in the way, is that hard work equals success. And that was overriding, replacing the unmet need, which I wasn't looking at yet. So for 4 to 6 weeks, I sat here, and the harder I worked, the longer I stayed here, the more discouraged I became. It wasn't creating success. It was causing harm to all parts of my life. My health, because I'm sitting here eating at my desk. My relationships with others. I'm not reaching out and calling people. I'm hyper-focused on my work. I wasn't creating any new relationships in my career. I wasn't praying. My prayer space is over there. I was staying right here. So even though there was a positive intention of being a workaholic, hard work equals success, it wasn't happening. It was a false positive. So when I had the opportunity, and I invite you to have this same one, of really digging in and finding out what my unmet need is, what is your unmet need? Then I can create a response that doesn't interfere with getting it. So fortunately, my coach and I realized that I was lonely beyond words. In the pre-pandemic time, I could get really busy. I would visit with my grandkids. I would see my friends. Being lonely wasn't a constant. It was there, but it was manageable. But what I learned in COVID and being in shelter in place is that it really hurt. And being around others wasn't enough. I'm very fond of this part of the show because I get to share a story with you that ties in the lofty question and paradigm and my guest. Today you're going to meet Kimberly, and she and I met during this COVID crisis. We have a lot in common, primarily that we're both in long-term recovery and really care about the health and happiness of our community. Kimberly is the founder of a sober house on Cape Cod and a wonderful, wonderful woman. You'll meet her soon. So what I want to refer to in this part of my story here goes back 20 plus years. Oh gosh, 40 years. Oh my God, in my 20s. Whew, boy, time flies. But in my 20s, I was a daily drinker. And the positive intention of that was that it made my life easier. I was happier. I was easier to get along with. I was less stressful, and I did better in my mind, in my life. And, you know, kind of looked that way from the outside, except when it didn't. And, you know, I would be very good at forgetting the trouble booze caused me and the pain it caused others. I was ignoring my need. The unmet need was left in confusion. And my solution was this habit that I created that had a positive intention. And it went on for years. The thought that I had that I was a better person, that this was helping me, was not true. It was actually killing me. But it took so long to see that. It was actually 2002 when my 16-year-old son pointed out, by advocating for his own wellness, that I had to go, that my behavior was unacceptable. And I left. And what that did in that shift of physically relocating was created an opportunity to really truly ask, what do I need? And it was to be safe. I needed safety. And booze was not creating that at all. It was the exact opposite. It was affecting my health. It was affecting my relationships with my kids. I was unemployable. I picked fights with a person who was really angry. It did absolutely everything opposite to what that positive intention was telling me it was doing. So when the shift occurred, when I physically left my home, and I had a bit of a blank slate, which is what is going on now in COVID. We have a blank slate. I was able to truly find out what that unmet need was, and it is safety. So by putting the drink down, the miracle of sobriety, safety became a real thing for me. I no longer drank. I belonged to a fellowship of people who were doing the same thing that I was doing. I became employable. I learned to pray and trust God. My relationships flourished, and I forged new ones. So what we're asking here today is, what is my unmet need and what stands in the way of me getting it? The habit of drinking was standing in the way of me even seeing what my unmet need was. Once I identified that, then I could go into these places, these actions that provided for the safety that I truly needed. And that's how this works. So if you've been in a loop for a very long time, that's okay. We don't necessarily need to solve these things right away. The good news, as I experienced in COVID, was that in about 4 weeks' time, I was in enough pain to find out what my true need was. And that's cool, because I've been doing this for a while. This is my favorite part of the program, when I bring a beautiful person, a friend, into the room to share in our lofty question and paradigm in their own personal experience. And this is Kimberly Walsh, a new friend of mine. I anticipate a long-term friend to be. We met in August during an invitation to be on her podcast, The Map, and that was sponsored by the Foxborough Cable Access Channel. And it was wonderful to be her guest, and it was natural for her to join me here. So welcome, Kimberly.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure, for sure. So Kimberly, can you please tell me about the MAP broadcast?
Absolutely. It was started by Kristen Perry Long, and actually it was started by Andy Bernstein and myself, and we brought in Chris Perry Long afterwards. We wanted to put together a podcast that spoke about mental health and addiction. So it's actually the Mental Health and Addiction podcast.
That's where MAP comes from. Right.
And we wanted to have a forum where we talked about things that people were kind of afraid to. Mental health is still kind of a taboo subject.
Right.
So we wanted to bring bring resources and information to people who were curious about, whether they had a loved one who had issues with a mental illness or addiction. I brought my experience as someone in recovery. Chris has worked in the industry for many years. She's had children that were addicted that are in recovery now. So we thought that, and Foxborough Cable Access actually gave us a forum and a platform with which to give this information. So we started out in the studio doing a weekly show. Of course, after COVID, we started doing Facebook Live.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is 2 years now that you've been doing it?
Brady's Landing's been coming on 2 years being open,
But
but the podcast was just last December.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
45 episodes.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's great. So Cam, what do you think your unmet need was?
With regard to the show, my unmet need was the ability to contribute my experience and my knowledge about addiction and mental illness that I've gleaned over the years with others, so that they could have an opportunity to heal some of those aspects, either in themselves or for their loved one.
So there's this loop that you were in of staying. You probably felt this unmet need for a while, but we stayed. So I'm wondering if you know what the positive intention that preserved you and staying there as justified.
Okay. So I believe that was my commitment. I mean, I started the podcast. I was, intimately entwined and in creating it. And, I made a commitment. I gave my word that I would continue on with it. And I also thought that I could fix it and make it more of what I wanted.
Right. That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. We often stay in things in the hope that we can love something into wellness.
Yes. Oftentimes women will, I can change him.
fix something into, well,
Yes. Yeah.
that's a big one. So how did being in that loop negatively affect your wellness, which is your health,
Right.
your career, your relationships,
Sure.
money, and that which is greater? So that's the big five. Can you kind of close your eyes and see how being in that loop affected those things in a negative way?
Yes. It impacted and affected in a negative way my own self-confidence, my belief in who I was and what I knew,
Right.
and the contributions I could bring to the table in that setting. It I will often stick with something much longer than I should, with the intent of making it work.
Right.
When in fact the healthier thing to do would be to let go.
Right.
And that's an old pattern that I think was showing up as well.
Yeah, and we do, and that's not uncommon. So did you find yourself a little stressed? I remember you saying we should only do one show and we're doing two,
Yes.
and
Like I mentioned to that, I said it wasn't fun anymore. It became something that I dreaded instead of something that I was excited about.
right. So how does that carry out into the other parts of your life?
What trickles down, it touches everything. There would be fear built up, and that perpetuates more lack of confidence and self-esteem issues. When I was on a path. My path was betterment, self-actualization.
Right.
This was not helping.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the audience is still receiving something good,
Yeah.
but you're paying a price because you don't belong there anymore. Right. And it's, the understanding that we can move on
Right.
in things when we're not comfortable anymore, if it's not serving our wellness, if you're in a relationship that's doing this, or you're in a job that's doing this, or a volunteer position, or
Right. And what was amazing about it is, once I got the permission, it wasn't scary at all.
Right.
There was a big fear around actually making the break.
Right.
I didn't think I could do that.
Right.
And nor did I aspire to.
and yes, you as soon as you were like, I've got to do this with integrity and love, and
yes, because that's what I felt.
right, and we did that together. Can you give me the play-by-play on what got you out of the loop?
Absolutely. Well, we were on a Zoom call, you and I, kind of a debrief after our podcast.
Correct.
Our episode, and I knew that you had watched subsequent episodes, and so I just asked, what'd you think? Just wanted some feedback.
And my reply was that I missed you.
Yes. And I think you also said that you wanted to hear more from me about the subject matter that you weren't hearing.
Right.
And I heard that. That was what I needed to hear because it confirmed what I was believing, which led me to then do what I had wanted to do, which I was fearful about doing, which was resign. I then I drafted a letter. I put down everything I was feeling about it. It was still rough, so I asked for your help in maybe saying what it is that I was trying to say that I couldn't quite get to.
Yeah, I invited you to send it to me.
Yes, and you did, and you revised it, and it was brilliant. I was able to submit that, and I ended the loop by resigning from the podcast.
That night.
Yeah. So after working with Terry and getting out my thoughts onto paper, and to having her work with me on developing and creating the letter, when I submitted the letter, the reaction that I got was overwhelming. It was met with love and acceptance, and there was all the fear that I had kind of was gone. My self-confidence came back. I was actually over the top. I remember calling you back and saying, you have no idea what you've done for me. This this changed my life in this aspect so that I can get back. I got back to where the path I was headed on, which was the positive path, which I didn't realize how much that this had been dragging me down. So when that lifted, everything else in my life shifted and became more positive and became more joyous. And it's hard to put into words how that physical feeling, but it was amazing, and I only want more.
Well, I remember you reading the response back, and the heartfelt compliment about who you are, and that was what you wanted to bring to the show that wasn't present yet. You was recognized as who you are. And so that was, again, an affirmation of who I am, and why I want to leave is because this is who I am.
Right.
And it was a wonderful response from management, and very inspiring to send you on your way.
Yeah, and the experience taught me what Terry taught me was that it's okay. It's okay to be me. It's okay to take care of yourself and do what you need to do, because when you do that, there is no bad that can come from it.
Right.
That's only positive things can happen as a result of that. It's
Right.
the loop that is detrimental.
Exactly, and it's really what we can experience now is a better version of you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So, I mean, we all gain when you take care of yourself, when we take these unmet needs and solve it. We acknowledge that this loop is holding me back, and we replace it with the opportunity to be in my bright space.
Right.
Then great things happen next.
Right.
And
that's
exactly what happened. So Kim, I've been to Brady's Landing. Can you please tell us about it for you and what it means?
Absolutely. So Brady's Landing has been my labor of love. It's a sober home for women on the Cape. Our women are over the age of 30, so we make sure that women come together who have similar experiences so that they can build a foundation together of support. The property is particularly special in that that's where I spent every summer of my life with my grandparents. It represents love and healing and joy, and that's what I wanted to share with others. So I built the business of Brady's Landing on that foundation. No more than 6 at any given time,
Okay.
Which keeps it very intimate. It's a
Yeah.
boutique setting.
Yeah.
They get individualized support. We have holistic healing methodologies that are incorporated. We do, yoga on the lawn.
Yeah.
We'll do,
Yeah.
in the winter we've got the, little gym downstairs. We do check-ins every night where everyone tells what they're feeling, and then we go around gratitude, and it's very recovery based.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily 12-step, but it is recovery focused. And it's turned out to be something amazing, and I'm blessed to have been a part of it. It's kind
Absolutely.
of taken on a life of its own.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. So thank you for creating it, and thanks to your grandparents who are blessing it all. Well, I want to thank you, Kimberly, for being here today. I loved hearing this over and over again, because it's just great news, and thank you for your transformation in using these tools to become a better version of you. It's been a wonderful broadcast. Brady's Landing is an amazing place. Please reach out if you need help in recovery. The website is bradyslanding.org.
Yep.
It's pretty simple. Thank you so very, very much.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Well, that was fun. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Really glad that you're here. If you'd like to see previous episodes, the town of Lunenburg has a YouTube channel. You can check them out there. Or you can come to our YouTube channel. Lofty Questions with Terry Finnegan Lynch will be typed into the search bar, and that's how you'll find us. And if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, you can write to us at a Gmail account, loftyquestions@gmail.com. This has been a real pleasure to be here. Thank you, Kimberly, for being such a wonderful guest. And thank you for joining us on Lofty Questions. See you next time.